Tess, when you hear the words power of women and reflecting on your own experiences, what comes to mind?
Oh, Di, I love that you asked this question. And I just turned 40 on the weekend, and I've been
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. I've been thinking about my word and what will it be for the next decade. And I anchored on power, believe it or not. And I anchored on that because for me, it's not power, I can rule the world. It's a deep embodiment of who I am, and knowing that I've done the work, that I've found my soul, my dark spots, my triggers. I mean, they're always unfolding. But the power in that, when you know yourself, when you start to love yourself again, when you trust in yourself, which I've never had that before, and it's been a long process for me to get there. So I would say it's like a power for me is a silent self-trust and a belief in myself that can ride the waves, can ride the storms, and is a really grounded, beautiful force, which is the divine feminine. And so that to me is the true embodiment of power now for me. So bring on power, hey?
Yay. Brilliant. So what happens when the very qualities that built your success, your drive, your identity, your refusal to stop, are actually the same qualities that almost break you? I'm Di Gillett, and this is the Power of Women podcast. And if you're joining us for the first time, what I love about this platform is the opportunity to showcase and celebrate the strength, resilience, and achievements of women from all walks of life. And this conversation is about pushing through and ignoring some of the signs. And that is a deeply personal conversation for me, because I started the beginning of this year, in fact, New Year's Day, with having a sign, not quite so sure, deciding to listen to it, and spent 3 days in a hospital in Melbourne in Australia with a suspected heart attack. Now, I am absolutely thrilled to say that it didn't end up being the case, but what it was the fact that I had pushed too hard and literally run myself into the ground. So to put some more context to this, I am joined today by Tess Brouwer, mental and emotional fitness expert, co-founder of Awake Academy with Lane Beachley. And Tess is the former head of brand partnerships at Virgin Australia. And she's a woman who rebuilt her life after a life-changing spinal and brain injury. Tess was a high performer in the corporate world. There were big deals, big responsibilities, big identity. Then a skiing accident at 32 changed everything. A spinal injury, Guillain-Barré diagnosis, multiple hospital visits, a body that wouldn't cooperate, and a nervous system in overload. So in a conversation today, we're going to explore how to reset, rebuild, and rise stronger when your identity fractures. Because the reality is, for any of us, life can change in a blink of an eye. Tess Brouwer, welcome to the Power of Women podcast.
Thank you, Di. When you hear those words being read about you, I'm instantly emotional. I'm instantly back there. Someone said to me the other day, it was actually one of my friends, "Are you okay?" talking about it a lot. And I feel like that's the true sense of power, is knowing that that trauma and that pain still sits within, and you can work through it, and you're comfortable sitting in it.
Yeah.
I've spent so long ignoring myself, my feelings and my emotions, and passing them off as, well, there's a war going on. Who am I to experience pain? But yeah, thank you for a beautiful intro. But yeah, know that it's still hard hearing that, because I still am in it.
So all of that emotion's going to come through in our conversation today, Tess. And if there is at any point where you want to call a break, you call a break.
Thank you.
Because I get it.
Yeah.
So Could we go back, take us back to the skiing accident? What happened, and more importantly, what happened in the days and the weeks after you realised this wasn't something you could just ignore and push through?
The truth is I knew instantly. So I just moved over to Switzerland, and I was like, first week, new job, skiing day, and went up a black run with the team because that's what you do when you're a high-performance woman who's out to impress everyone. And a skier went past me. It was a very, very foggy, like whiteout up there. And I went straight into the side of a ice wall because you had to come down the mountain through.
Good, you had no perspective. You couldn't read the ground.
Yeah. And, I lost both my skis, slammed headfirst into the ice wall, lost both the skis, and just I remember going blank. And I remember pins and needles shot through my body, and then the adrenaline just surged, and I just got up laughing, trying to kind of overcome what was happening in myself. And deep down I knew, I remember thinking, you've done something here. But I had to carry on. I had to do what I've always done. I don't want to be the person that's in shame or the person that's the troubled one. I just wanted to click back in and keep going. And I did. And I got off the mountain pretty quickly. I just needed to get away, cracking headache, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. And it's not like me to miss a party, Di, and I didn't want to go to the after party. I just needed to go home and go to sleep. Now, when your identity is wrapped up in your work, and for context, I had just sold out everything and moved to overseas. So this was a permanent move to Europe. This was a permanent move.
Switzerland. Yeah.
Yep. I'd signed over my residency to Australia. I was now residing in Switzerland. So the mere thought that something was wrong with me and that I would need any sort of form of medical treatment it wasn't even a concept to me. So I did what I have always done, is I carried on. And that looked like, for me, is pins and needles up and down my hand, loss of feeling in my shoes. I got in my feet. So I got my mum to send over shoes that I loved in Australia because I felt like I had more feeling in my feet in them.
So you're already looking for Band-Aids to be okay everywhere. With this. Yeah.
Everywhere. And there was a pivotal moment where I was swimming in Lake Geneva and I was diving through the water and I totally lost feeling in my legs. I remember swimming and I remember thinking, I am going to drown, because there's quite a rapid that goes down there. And everything in me was get to the edge of this jetty. And I got there and I was holding onto the jetty, and I remember thinking, like, if you don't get up, you're gonna drown. And like with every ounce of my body, I just pushed myself up, and I laid there almost like, when you see a seal flop themselves up onto a jetty and they lie there?
Legs working.
Legs weren't working. And I was just thinking, fuck. And so I do what most normal people do, is you get out your phone and you Google your symptoms.
Yeah.
And it suggested that I had multiple sclerosis, which I thought, well, I can deal with that. Now, if you're someone who has that, I'm terribly sorry for downplaying that. But in my head, it was the easier thing to capture in my brain, because it was something that it was a long-term issue that I could deal with when I got back to Australia, when I went back there another time, because I didn't know how to deal with that medical system either. Second language, obviously I didn't even speak French. And so there was a series of these moments, Di, that were just like, I look back on myself and I'm like, what were you ignoring? I was wetting my pants at work and just going to the shops and buying new ones.
And that was the spinal injury pressing on nerves.
Yeah, pressing on my nerves. And what was happening was, because my spinal cord was bruised, compressed and swelling, I was going into spinal shock, and I didn't realise it. And people can do incredible things with a spinal cord injury and not know about it. And you can still experiencing loss of feeling in hands and all of that. They're quite in quote unquote normal experiences, as you know, with your back.
I do.
But couple that with spinal shock, and then your body's starting to shut down. And that's when I went to hospital, because I just thought, I can't deal with this any longer. And I said to them I hit my head. They ignored that, and they sent me home with an anxiety tablet. Fortunately, I was sent straight back to hospital the next morning for an MRI. And at that point, they just said, look, you're going to have to be an inpatient because we've got to work out what's wrong with you. There's something going on. So lumbar punctures, being electrocuted, like actually multiple lumbar punctures, which is like possibly
very
one of the painful
painful.
things. Yeah.
Haven't had one, but I've witnessed a family member having it, and it was unforgettable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pain that, you can't explain. And I say this with grace to myself at this moment, but I still didn't call home. I still didn't call my mum or my family. Shame. Total shame. Like, how could I have ignored my body? How have I gotten to this point? And I was getting really bad. Like, I remember my speech.
How long is it now since the accident?
A couple of months.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just progressively getting worse.
Yeah.
And then I was an hour away. They decided that I had Guillain-Barré disease, which is sort of like a category that they put me in, and thought, that's what you've got, and you're an hour away from getting a blood transfusion. It's time you call home. But we want to do one more MRI to completely make sure that you're all right. And I went down into the MRI machine, and I think it was like my third one, because they put dye through me and all of those sorts of pokes and prods. And the radiologist in broken English said to me, you hit your head. And I said, yes, like, that's what I've been saying. Like, I know that that's when my body changed. You know that moment, right? It wasn't dramatic at the time, but I knew that was the moment. It was
progressive from there.
Yes. Yeah. And because I was fit and, like, I just did not have anything like that before that moment. And I said, yeah, I hit my head. And he said, you have a spinal cord injury. And I just went, bang. And, yeah, the penny dropped. And they gave my mum 24 hours to get over to Switzerland. I had to call her and say, Mum, I'm okay, but, yeah, And, yeah, she got over there, and it was one of the most heartbreaking moments ever, is seeing my mum walk into the hospital, and her daughter is there broken and quite frightened, really.
As was she.
But I didn't grasp, like, the high percentage of people who have this surgery, well, not high, but it's like low risk, but it's still a high number.
Anything to do with your spine is scary. I get it.
Yeah, and I didn't realise the risk that you could actually, like, it's millimetres. And my spinal surgeon said to me, you're lucky, you're very lucky. I've seen scans like this, and people are totally paralysed. And so, I went into surgery, and what I thought was going to be an 8-week surgery turned out to be, I went back, I had the surgery, stayed in hospital for 2 weeks, went back to Australia to recover, which I thought would be 8 weeks. And I thought, that's okay, I can get back to work. Because, again, that's all I thought about, was just getting back. And I was back at the hospital, like I was an outpatient at Royal North Shore Hospital in northern Sydney, which has got one of the best spinal wards in Australia there. And I went in for just a routine meeting, I guess, with my spinal surgeon and the physiotherapist and, like, my whole dream team, and they just said, you need to sit down, and we've given you, I had another MRI, and they said, your spine is swelling and the surgery hasn't worked, and you're going to have to go have another surgery again. And again, that's when the world shuts down on you and you fall apart, because, I mean, for someone who has wanted to be a high flyer and climb the corporate ladder and have all of this identity, I knew that would be it. There would be no job, no home, no clothes, no money, nothing. It was all gone.
You couldn't see beyond it at that point. It was like, we're done here.
That was it. Yeah, that was it. And it was like, I truly, like, there were so many moments where I didn't realize how serious it was. So even after the surgery, like the second surgery, and just before I went in, it was like 10, maybe 8 8 p.m. at night, something like that. And my surgeon got called in and he said, look, I've been operating all day. My team are really tired. I'm not going to operate. There's only one surgery ward open, and I'm not going to do this at night if you don't absolutely need it. He said, do you understand? And I said, yeah, I understand. He goes, it's going to be uncomfortable for you, but I have to make sure that your health is number one. And so I went down for the MRI and I came back out, and it, like, your worst fears in that moment are realised when he said, we're opening up the surgery, you're going in tonight.
Oh.
So it was sort of a bit like that, like a snowball that just got worse and worse and worse as time went on. And even more dramatically, that, like, I was getting prepped for surgery and a heart attack came in. So I hope that person survived so badly, but it meant I was then left, told that they couldn't wait, rushed in for surgery only to be pulled out, and then I had to wait for the next slot, which was another 24 hours later because there was another surgery planned. Wow. So it was just insane, Di. And then I woke
and very frightening. I mean, very, very frightening, because you don't know what the prognosis is at the end.
And you can retrospectively look back on these things. And I remember waking up in the spinal ward and them saying, it's not 2 weeks here, you're going to go, we've got to get you recovered and then you're going to ride. And I said, what's ride? Like, it's one of Australia's best rehab hospitals, and you'll be there for 3 months. And I just thought, am I living life? Is this me? Is this what I've worked so hard to be?
And I had nowhere near the result, albeit it was a ski accident, but it was in my childhood that came back to haunt me in 2021, which put me in hospital during COVID and put me in hospital for 2 weeks. And I came out and I couldn't walk without holding on to my husband's arm, and I'd gone in super fit, and I was at a point in my life where I was going to be fabulous as I approached 60.
Of course.
And I couldn't walk, and I can remember it was late September, and I said I'm going to be back to walking 10Ks by the December, and I was nowhere near it, and that's when I was like, I need to take some drastic steps. But I have some understanding of what happens when everything suddenly is turned on its head, and the simple things in life that we take for granted that are wrapped up in our health and well-being suddenly are thrown out, and we're staring down the barrel of an alternative universe that doesn't look so great. Frightening, isn't it?
Frightening. Totally frightening.
So do you know how much of your identity was wrapped up in Tess Brouwer, the corporate executive?
Well, at that point it was Tess Maroney, and it was all of it. Every single part of my identity was made up of my work, and we laugh about it, but Lane Beachley's husband is Kirk Pengilly from InXS, and I'm in his phone as Tess from Virgin. In fact, sometimes I'll email someone and I'll say, hey, it's Tess from Virgin. Do you remember? Like, because I still build this like absolute identity that's wrapped around what you do, not who you are. And I never went, like, my mum was and is still a very grounded spiritual person, but you don't really want to hear it from mum. And I didn't like...
No, because that's, anything that close to home doesn't land, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I realised, like, I had done, like, high-performance leadership courses and all of those sorts of stuff, but that's just training you to be a better performer, not a better human. And so I was lost that if I wasn't performing, who was I?
Yeah, if I wasn't Tess from Virgin, who was I?
If I wasn't doing a deal or succeeding in something or being invited somewhere, who am I? And a lot of my friends were getting married, engaged, pregnant, second baby, like creating these truly beautiful lives. And that was the gaping hole in mine, was I had no one to hug at night. I had no one to hold me up out of the shower when I couldn't walk. Like, I had my mum and my family, of course, but it even accentuated that whole fact that, wow, I've given everything to work and now I don't have that.
Yeah. So can you share with us, and I appreciate this is an emotional question, but can you share with us how that changed or impacted your sense of self? Can you take yourself back and describe what that actually felt like?
Yeah, I mean, like, it felt like I was alone in life, that no one will ever understand the pain that I'm going through. Now, in a ward of 24 beds, I was the only walker in a spinal ward. So I was alone there too. I had so much guilt, survivor's guilt.
Because the person in the bed next door couldn't walk.
And that's right. I tried to check myself out 2 or 3 times and give my bed to someone else. And that is true, Tess, across my whole life. I will give the shirt off my back to anyone apart from myself.
So you felt like an imposter being in the room?
Totally.
I relate to that. I felt like an imposter when I was in the heart ward at Christmas time, because I was sitting up feeling great and the girl in the bed next door had a pacemaker and the woman across from me wasn't in a great way. But so I get that feeling, but we're mad. We need to listen.
We're mad. And it was the surgeon that said, if you don't listen to yourself, if you don't listen to us, and if you don't put the work in when you're here, it will be 10 times worse when you get out. And you are here because you need to be here. You're showing some really strong signs of permanent damage. And so this is the time. So then that was a bit easier, because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to lock in. I know how to perform. I know how to drive myself. So I sort of had like this mental switch. Plus I had 2 guys that I was in hospital with called Alex and Harrison, who I became like their big sister to. And I devoted every spare hour I had to looking after them. So rehab.
So can I just stop you there for a moment? How much of that was about compassionate Tess, or was that Tess trying to find a role to fulfill because you had challenged your own identity as it was previously?
It's a wonderful question, Di, and the truth is it's both. And that's the wonderful thing about identity, right? It can be 2 things at the same time. It came from compassion. It came from my heart. And I still, love and care for those boys now.
It came from need as well.
Yeah, it came from purpose.
Yeah.
It came from feeling useful again. Because if I just was sitting in woe is me, my life is, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course you can.
Fucked.
Yep.
But then I realised that there was tiny things that I could do. I could semi-use my hands at this point. I could help Alex clean his teeth. So it just became these little micro moments where I was stacking myself onto these, I could be helpful. I wasn't, it's like when they say whenever you think your worst day is on, there's something even worse that you could be dealing with. So make the most of it. So I just applied that grit and that resilience to where I was. So I ended up going from just doing one, helping Alex eat an apple, to then I started running cooking classes for everyone, and I'd find out different ways that you could tie a mixer to someone's hand who had a paralysed hand so that they could cook muffins. So it started becoming part of my therapy and my joy and my light, that I was useful even in my most useless form of stuff.
Yeah. So at what point did you hit that, if I can't perform, who am I, to then saying, okay, I can now turn this into purpose to help each other? How long into your stay were you before that started?
It was pretty early on, and I remember it. I was lying in bed and the clock on my wall was ticking and driving me insane, because I mean, a hospital bed is pretty dire. Those curtains do not make you feel any better about yourself.
No, they don't.
And I popped next door to Alex and I said, is that clock annoying you? He said, I can't. I just don't know what to do about it. So I took it down and I took the batteries out.
Okay, so that prompts my next question, because how different does surrendering to your circumstances to be able to move forward differ to actually giving up? What's the difference there? Because you certainly didn't give up. You were still being true to yourself, even in saying, well, I can solve that issue with the ticking clock.
Yeah, I feel like it just comes from everything I've been through and the journey that I've been on, and that, like, to me, that is the best thing you can ever do, is help someone and to be there for others and to be of service. I knew that to be true throughout my whole life, but I didn't feel that I was worthy of that, or that I had enough to give, in terms, like, I always sort of equated that to be a monetary value. When I was in hospital, it really turned into being my true meaning and purpose at that time, was to be there to help everyone around me and to help those boys. And we know this now by all the science, is when you help someone else, really what you're doing is you're helping yourself. I didn't understand the importance of that for my healing journey until I was out and learning about the science of, like, positive psychology and well-being, and I didn't realize that it was actually rewiring my brain to feel like to have a mission and vision and purpose is one of the greatest. Like, you need that. You need meaning in your life, no matter what it is. And yeah, it was just those micro moments where you put your hand up and say, oh, I can do that. Like,
yep,
I can help.
Yep.
So
and it's the same. It's the same in starting Power of Women. I'm 62. I could retire, or I could do something meaningful.
Yeah,
I'm going to do something meaningful.
And thank God you did. Thank God you did. And, like, there was so many incredible moments in that hospital where, like, you know, everyone has to leave by 11 o'clock p.m. It was actually 9 p.m., but it got stretched. And so there's all of these scary hours of people being alone. But then you wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and it's the same noise, the same sound, and the same breakfast brought to you every day. And the boys hated it. It was the same bacon, eggs, Weet-Bix. And that smell was the triggering thing.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. So I would get up at 5 o'clock and take the breakfast out of their room.
Yeah.
So they didn't have that, and that would get me up. So it was like, when I say this just stacked, I was like, okay, I'm going to use this. So that became my superpower. But when I got out, and I lost that is when I hit the most absolute rock bottom I've ever felt.
You're listening to the Power of Women podcast, and coming up, we're going to move from breakdown to rebuild. If you're loving the Power of Women podcast, be sure to jump on to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss an episode. I'm talking with Tess Brouwer, who for years lived by the mantra, push through, power on and prove yourself. However, Tess faced into a defining moment when her nervous system was burnt out, her mind was in overdrive, and quite frankly, the wheels simply began to fall off. So in this part of our conversation, we move from breakdown to rebuild, what Tess calls mental fitness. So Tess, the defining moment and the tipping point where you stopped fighting and what was you recognised you needed to reset, that's where we're going to get into this part about mental fitness. But when did you have that moment of going, okay, I've got to acknowledge what's happened, and I now need to take a different approach to what my life looks like? What was the first steps in that?
Well, I had a wonderful friend called Lane Beachley, and we had met when I was at Virgin, and like I met a lot of people of all different shapes, sizes, importance, all the rest of it. But Lane and I just clicked when we met each other. And she came to visit me in hospital, and she brought a book in called My Dream Life. And I thought, this lady is absolutely out of her fucking mind. I'm in a spinal ward, like out of touch.
This is not my dream life.
Yeah. But there was a part of me, and I do feel like this was the resilience in me, was I remember looking at a white wall for so long, just staring at a ceiling in a neck brace, thinking, well, I guess I get to redraw my life. Like it's a white canvas. So it put a seed in me. And then when I got out of hospital, like when I say it really hit the fan, like shit really hit the fan for me, it was more like the floor opened up. In hospital, in rehab, you have a schedule every day, which is hour by hour mapped out, and you're like working to use your body again, not so much mentally. I was put on a lot of medication to help me, so anti-anxiety, antidepressant. I was getting I had complex PTSD, so I was getting really big flashes and terrors at night. So I was a little bit sedated as well. And so when I got out of hospital, I was 33, living in my bedroom with my parents, and I just found myself on the floor just like crying because I'd lost my job, my home, my money. I didn't even have any clothes at that point. I had a couple of Bond sets from Kmart that was just brought in
because everything was still back overseas.
Everything was still back overseas, and I really didn't care. It was like, I don't care. I've got clothes on my back, and that'll do. I couldn't even imagine wearing normal clothes at that point. And I wrote one thing in that book, and that was start a business. But I thought, how the hell are you going to do that when you've been a corporate girl your whole life, which is safe, and like I could never work a normal job again because I now am packaged up as damaged goods in my head. And I remember coming home from a pretty traumatic appointment, and it was all to do with my hands, to help them work again. And the lady had grabbed me, and I just remember looking at her thinking, like, you don't understand what's wrong with me. Don't touch me. And that friction was like, is this who I want to be? Do I really want to be that woman? And I got home and I was bawling my eyes out thinking my life is totally fucked. And that was rock bottom. And then I started imagining ways that I could quietly sleep off this beautiful earth. And yeah, that really broke me. And I remember looking out at the headland one day, watching the sunrise, just thinking, who do I want to be? You've got the choice. And I saw a beautiful whale pop up, and I just thought, you've got to do this. And I had realised that the story I'd been telling myself was, I'm broken and I'm unlovable. And if I keep on telling myself that, I will be broken and I will be unlovable.
Yeah.
So I did a life audit, and I saw that what was the story I was subscribing to was, I'm broken, I'm unlovable.
How did you actually do the audit? Was that just in your mind, or was that pen to paper?
On the floor, on a piece of paper. Yeah. Had no framework.
Yep.
I was doing it on my own.
And what were the key things you wrote down in that audit?
Yeah, I am broken, I'm unlovable. Like, who am I working with? Who's supporting this? Now, at the same time, I was back at Lane Beachley's house, and I was there with Holly Ransom, who you'll know, she's a power woman herself. Yep. And at Lane's house with Kirk Bengilly walking around, and their house is like a huge trophy room, to be honest. And I had my discharge papers of everything that was wrong with me. I even published it in our book. And Lane, I gave it to Holly, and Holly read it and gave me a big hug, and she'd been in hospital with me. And then I gave it to Lane, and she read it, and she goes, poof. She said, well, if you believe all of this bullshit, then your life will be fucked. And if I could rip it up, I would.
There's the blunt reality check you needed.
That's right. Love and compassion.
Yeah.
But the truth is if you call someone out, and this is what I've learned about myself in that moment, is have the courage and the care to hold them up after. So not
Yeah, you need to know how much they can hear and how direct
much
you can be.
push. And her lifeline to me was, I have a course that I'm doing by myself in 2 weeks, which is like her own workshop. I haven't sold any tickets, like it's not online yet, and I need help designing the course, and you're going to help me do it. And there's that moment of yes, right? Like, take the clock down, take out the batteries. This was saying yes to myself or helping myself. So I just said yes. But I said, I can't work over than an hour. I don't have a lap. Like, I had nothing. And she said, just go for it. So that was a turning point. So I looked at my life and I'm like, what is serving me and what is sabotaging me? And what was serving me was the story of I'm broken and I'm unlovable, because I got support, people were behind me. But was it really serving me? No, it would keep me stuck. So I changed my story, and in that I went, okay, well, what do I need? So I went from 15 therapists down to 2, and I got one new one and I stayed with an old one, and she was really pushing me to go into my pain. You have been running from pain your whole life, through drinking, through partying, through clothes, through food, like through busyness, through performance. Like, these were all my Band-Aids. And when you've lost them all, it becomes very discomfort. Like, the discomfort in that is life-changing.
Do you ever think this accident needed to happen?
Yes. Yes, of course it did. And if it wasn't that, it would be something else. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the universe, is it gives us exactly what we need to wake up.
Yeah.
And that's why we call it the Awake Academy, because it was my awakening.
Yeah.
And if I look back at my life, I was getting lots of these stones thrown at me. I just wasn't willing to listen. Yeah. So I feel like life just then, it gets louder.
Yeah. And the stones get a little bit more.
Bigger.
A little bit bigger. I get it.
Was yours like that? Do you see yours?
Well, I do, and I guess just by the virtue of being older, but I've had some oh shit moments. I mean, in 1999, I developed alopecia totalis. I lost all of my hair. I was completely bald. I was at the height of my corporate powers, and I'm wearing a bandana and a corporate suit, and it's like, who the fuck am I now?
Yeah.
But I managed to get headhunted into a GM role in that state. I validated to myself that I could still function. I still had worth. I recognized that I could talk about my plight and talk to children in the schoolyard, because children with alopecia in the schoolyard is a pretty tough place to be, because you get bullied and teased and taunted. And a bit like you, Tess, of, okay, if I put some purpose behind what I'm experiencing and use that to help others, then that is going to help me through. So it's exactly the same.
It's exactly
experience.
The same. Pain to purpose.
Yeah.
And I think the learning point for me was the cost of fighting the reality I was in, like, as in trying to downplay it or ignore it, or just trying to, like, I was like a duck trying to swim with it. That was more painful than actually dealing with it. I just couldn't see it at the time. And learning that neuroscience behind how my brain was, I could rewire my brain at any time. And I started doing Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations morning, noon and night. And I was just obsessed with trying to rewire my brain and trying to calm it down, because it was just everything was a threat.
Everything was heightened anxiety.
Totally.
Yeah. So let's delve into this mental fitness bit. What's the difference between pure grit and toughness that drove you to push through? I mean, is grit and toughness the same thing?
I would say so. I mean, they're pretty loaded words, grit and toughness. I think we overplay resilience to be push through, get up, keep going. I think resilience has a fragility to it where you can sit with it and you learn to process it and you rewire your story and you get help, and that is resilience. if we turn that into, oh, you're so tough, you just get up and go, that's when it becomes almost like a badge of honor.
Yes.
That you've overdone it.
Yeah. And we use that line as a badge of honor. That's the madness of it.
Yeah. And I think that's where mental fitness gets a bit clouded, or positive psychology and well-being, or is that you have to, push through, develop grit, become resilient. That's not what it is. It's understanding the truth of what's going on within, the root cause, because as you know, emotional pain is one of the biggest causes of stress, injury, disease, like dis-ease in your body, because the body would rather feel physical pain than emotional pain. And we're very good at going to the gym, working on our bodies, looking great, but where have we put in mental fitness where we can start to use grit as just getting up and going for a walk instead of going for a run? Like that, that is the type of language that I love challenging people on. Not in combat, but just what are you associating grit with?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I know personally resilience, and you've touched on it, but resilience can tip into denial. It can become your enemy. How do you now define not taking no for an answer in a healthy way without losing that strength of character that is you?
Yeah, it's funny. My husband said in his speech that Tess doesn't take no for an answer. She sees it as a roundabout. And
that's got a softer landing than just not take no for an answer.
Yeah. And I think, like, the person that I needed to say no to be perfectly honest, was myself. And it wasn't, and maybe that's the roundabout theory in real life, is like pushing through, grit, like force. Like I started to apply that mindset. So the mindset that I knew of high performance woman, getting shit done, ticking all the right boxes, to healing. Because your brain just brings you back to what you've always known. So I was trying to do it all, trying to go to every appointment. So I was burning myself out in healing. So when I learned what true self-love was and what mental fitness and emotional fitness was actually saying, no, not now, to myself. Like, you don't need to do it all. You need to learn to sit in your pain and discomfort. And then I became aware of that. So that's when the roundabout came in. It's like, well, you can't do all of it, but what's the something? Like, what would be different about today if you just actually took care of your soul? And that to me was having gentler mornings, not rushing it. And that, Di, is how I rebuilt my life.
There we go. Because I was going to ask you, because I've visited Burnout on the podcast on a number of conversations over the last 2 years, and had a terrific conversation, which if anybody listening hasn't already listened to it, with Shanna Kennedy, who was a high performance coach and then burnt out. The difference in this conversation is you more than burnt out, you actually broke. You physically broke, and that's the different bit. So could we get practical at this point in the conversation, and for the Power of Women community, for a woman navigating a health setback, a career disruption, an identity shift that comes from something not going to plan and the wheels falling off? What are the non-negotiables in rebuilding that toolkit?
Okay, Di. So first of all, I realized that everything comes from your intentions. So not your expectations, your intentions of who you are and how you want to show up in the world. Now, I knew I wasn't going to be healthy, strong. All of those words didn't exist for me. It was, I just want to be sunshine. So I woke up every day and I just made sure I watched the sunrise every day. What would sunshine do? Sunshine can weather all storms. It radiates from within, and it just feels good to be around. So I wanted to feel good from within. So if I started there, my day actually became, what can I do to keep my sunshine? Well, I needed to rest. I needed to look after myself. So I would say to everyone, start your day with an intention, and your energy will flow from that. We are energetic beings, and our brains need to tell our bodies what mindset we need that day. It's not woo-woo, it's neuroscience now. So that would be my number one tip. The side note on that, I met my husband a year later from leaving hospital, and the first words he said to me was, I am sunshine.
And because you had become somebody people wanted to be around.
That's right. And normally I would have just put my head down and walked away. And, a year later from that day, we were engaged, we got married, we had a baby. And, so having that intent really changed my life. Then I would, and this is something I've incorporated because I am entering into perimenopause, and I do need to be really conscious of how I fuel my body. And your brain and your body will fuel on what you feed it. And that includes negative self-talk is as important to become aware of and to close down as it is for my morning coffee.
Yeah, it's true. I get it.
So I have a big glass of water with some cracked sea salt to rehydrate my body. And when I do that, I'm drinking it saying, today's going to be a great day. Show me how good it's going to get. And I just have this quiet solitude in my moment. Now, if you're already doing that, I highly recommend scraping your tongue first thing and cleaning your teeth before you have a drink of water, because then you're not drinking back down the toxins. That was a game changer.
Yeah, there you go. Not everybody has a tongue scraper in their bathroom, but they should.
They should, yeah.
Yeah.
We just had Dr. Stacey Sims on our podcast, A Wake Up Call, and she introduced me to a protein coffee. I fasted a lot to help my body heal, and now I'm entering into a new season in my life. It's about sustained energy and sustained well-being.
Tell me about a protein coffee. That sounds interesting.
Coffee. Yeah, so you want to have, we don't want to be in survival mode from the moment we wake up. So fasting works against our hormones. Yeah,
because that's fight or flight. Cortisol.
But I can't wake up with an egg. I like to exercise.
Yeah, I meet my egg at about 11 a.m. these days.
So a scoop of, I just make a coffee and put 2 scoops of protein in, mix it up, and it is delicious. And I have really noticed a difference in my energy throughout the day because of that.
Yeah, because you've kept yourself at a better level.
Yeah,
but it's a protein start.
Yeah,
great.
Scheduling breaks. So I look at I used to look at my diary and say, okay, what needs my attention today? And now I look at it, where can I build in breaks today? Where am I resting and recovering? Because burnout is a classic, you're climbing a mountain, you don't come down again, you just climb the other one, so you're constantly on peak state. And we think of that as like maybe a project or a moment in time, but really if we start looking at that in our day, you start to think, okay, well, how can I build in 5 minutes here, 90 seconds there, a sunshine break over lunch with no tech, closing my eyes, and start to become aware of what your body and your mind are saying to you. And in those moments of rest, you're really giving your body time to just close down, decompress, and then you come back with more energy, more clarity, more focus. And at the end of the day, you're not absolutely fucked.
Wiped out. Yeah.
So that's a big one.
So true.
And
none of these are hard to do.
They're all free.
Yeah.
They are all free. We just need the reminder that this stuff works. I feel like it's so easy to say to someone, take this pill and it will work. And then but all that's doing, none of that's addressing the reason you needed the pill. That's right. That's why I hate that approach. Yeah. But we did create a pill, Lane and I, actually, because both of us are experiencing brain fog. And
both of you might be, in the M word.
Exactly. Yeah. So we worked with a chemist, actually, and it's called Wake Up. So it's for those days where you really need to be on focus. Yep. That aside, what is so important for me now is I know that emotions last in your body for 90 seconds. Anything other than that, so it's energy in motion is emotion. Anything other than that 90 seconds is the story you wrap around it. So, for example, an email or a phone call comes through and you feel that rage, you don't deal with it. You pick up your phone or you talk to a colleague or someone else and you start raging about it. How dare this person? You start blaming, shaming, you start the self-doubt and the chatter comes
90 seconds starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Now it's stored. Now it's part of your memory. Now whenever that person sends or messages you, your body instantly goes into fight or flight. Now, in the previous days, we could just get up and run because it's a saber-toothed tiger, but you can't do that when you're making dinner. Kids ask you for the 18th time what's for dinner and not offer to help. Or whatever that looks like, whatever that rage moment looks like for you. So this is a non-negotiable for me, is when I feel triggered, and it could be sadness, it could be anger, it could be even happiness is an emotional trigger, is to sit in it and breathe through it. And there's a breath called the physiological sigh, which is 2 breaths in through your nose, like short and long, and then a really slow exhale through the nose. And that puts your body from out of fight or flight into your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you down instantly. And it is my absolute superpower, and that is emotional fitness.
Same. I learnt that some time ago, and I can completely change. And I'll give you a real life example of that. When I had my heart episode at New Year's Day, and I had to go in for an MRI, and they said, your heart rate's too high, we're going to have to give you a drug to bring it down. I said, don't, I'll do it through breath. And they said, no, we'll need to give you a drug. I said, give me 2 minutes, just give me 2 minutes. And I had to really push back, and in 2 minutes it was down below 50. They said, how did you do that? I said, breathing. Don't give me the drug. So it absolutely works.
Isn't that amazing, Di, that you have the awareness to do that, but then you burnt yourself out and ended up in hospital?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Like
deeply intelligent and deeply flawed. Both things can be right.
Well, I think that's what I've learned in this, is having logical awareness of things is not the same as putting it in practice.
No, it's not.
And
I listen to your story, and I listen to other people's story, and then I go and work my ass off 7 days a week and repeat it all over again. So I know.
Though? Why?
That's probably what I haven't answered yet.
Yeah. And
I think it's ambition, but it might be more than that.
No, mine was my self-worth.
Yeah.
To be loved.
Well, those two things, ambition and self-worth, are wrapped together in my world, and I'm sure they are in many of our listeners' worlds too. Yeah. So
what
it's
am
about
I
pulling that apart?
Yeah. So that just having the awareness of that, Di, is like the biggest part. It's like asking myself every day, am I doing this because I need to feel loved? Because I'm not getting it from within. And having the awareness is then you say no to jobs that don't light you up, that you're doing it for X and Y.
Yeah. So, Tess, can I ask you, are you stronger now than you were before the accident?
I'm softer. Some would say I'm just as strong. But I've turned that strength into a gentle strength. And that's been the biggest gift.
And that's emotional to face into, and you probably need to teach me that, because the tough, gritty facade is our armour.
Yeah, and at what cost does that serve us or you? What?
Or anybody else listening to us.
Anyone listening.
Yeah.
And I know that sustained well-being, because now I teach it and I've taught it to thousands of people, and I watch it with Lane Beachley. Like, she won a two world titles in a state of love and freedom. It's clear, it's disciplined. It's not that level of strength. It doesn't make you weak. But the other level of strength, which is pushing you, is like over questioning, pushing through, comparison, the what ifs, the I should, the could, the would.
I need to get on the couch. Seriously, I seriously need to take a damn hard look at myself.
But they're two totally different operating models. And when if sustained mental fitness, sustained well-being as having those cracks, warts and all, and just knowing that you are enough, just as you are, and that no amount of financial money will ever prove that to you. So for what? Because when you're on your ass in your parents' bedroom with no money, no car, no home, nothing, and you have to learn to love yourself just as you are, you just become softer.
Yeah. Well, Tess, that's a very, very vulnerable conversation, and I thank you for being prepared to share that. I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid-fire questions as we come to a close today.
Di, can I just close before you go into the rapid fire?
Yeah,
just
sure.
For all of the women listening, and whether you're a parent or not, and I just want you to relate to this story. We had a lady who was a very high corporate achiever, just like me, but, you know, I think she had 3 children, and she did a course called Own Your Truth, and it's a one-day live, or we've got it online.
Through the Academy.
Through the Awake Academy, yeah. And we follow up with people a month later, because we don't want to just be a fry pan. So, you know, when you walk, you don't come to us and walk on hot coals and you're liberated from life. It's real grit, but with toolkits. And I saw her a month later and I said, how are you going? She's like, really good, and I'm working through some stuff, and I'm just trying to be a more present mum. And that's great. Like, you know, that for her, that was what she had realized she had left behind, was her presence with her family and loved ones. And that to me was a big wake up call, because I'm like, what is success? Like, when you are too busy being busy, you miss the joy and the micro moments and the glimmers, and they're the things that light you up. That's what living is. It's not just going on a holiday every few months. It really is the micro moments every day. And I was fortunate enough to see this beautiful soul another month later, so 2 months had passed, and she gave me the biggest hug, and she said to me, I think I've found it. And I said, what is it? And she said, oh, my kids said that I'm happier. They said, what have you done, Mum? You're so much happier. You're there with us. Like, you're fun, Mum. And she had identified as being dictator mum because she was tired. And that, to me, when we talk about pain to purpose, that is my why, because I know you can still be powerful but present and gentle and calm. Like, you can still be all those things.
And I think there's a simple question in that, and look in the mirror and say, am I enjoying life? I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Okay.
Rapid fire. Rapid fire. Here we go. So, one belief about success you no longer subscribe to?
That money buys happiness. And because of that, output would equal worth, so that you have to be doing more to being worthy, and then you get more money, and then you'll be happy.
A red flag high performers should never ignore.
Chronic exhaustion masked as busyness.
Yes. And the strongest version of you looks like?
Sunshine.
There we go. Sunshine.
Yeah, just energetic, magnetic, calm, present. Of course, I have my wobbles. I am by no means perfect. Ask my kids. But I think it's just I have, a grounded sense of who I am and the love I have for myself now, warts and all.
Yeah, beautiful. Tess, thank you again for sharing. I'm going to put the links to the Awake Academy into the show notes. And will that take them through to a toolkit page as well, if they click onto that?
Yeah, please do. We've got a 7 day of self-care, which you can do for free. We've got a soul map. If you have no idea where to begin, that's a good place to start. It'll tell you who you are and where you need to go. Or we've got monthly coaching with the Awake Collective, because people don't want to do this stuff alone. Or if you're really up for it, bring us into your business and let Lane and I show you how you can have sustained well-being and happy, healthy people.
Yeah, beautiful.
And can I credit you for something?
Oh,
I just want to honour you for holding space in this emotion that has come up for me today, you too are going through your own challenges and the story resonates back. And perhaps that's why I've been so raw and open and honest. And you've asked such beautiful questions that have given me the gift of reflection. And I know for all the women out there that listen to your podcast, and men, is that we're all looking to find a better way through and an easier way. And thank you for that gift, for allowing me to explore that alongside you as you explore your trauma and pain as well, because there is a better way.
Now you've made me emotional.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tess. That's beautiful. And I've spent 30 years in the executive search space interviewing people and learning their stories. I've spent 2 years interviewing on the power of women, and I have learnt more about myself in those 2 years than I learnt in the previous 30. So you are spot on. Bang on.
Yeah.
So to Tess's point, there are going to be people within your network who would really benefit from listening to a conversation like this. And it might bring up the uncomfortable and it might bring up the emotion, but you know what? It takes that to actually have that inflection point and really face into what's not working. And that simple question that I said, you know, are you enjoying life? And if the answer's, if you hesitate, then you've got to ask yourself why.
Yeah, we're all just humans walking each other home.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Tess.
Thanks,
Until next time.